I'm worried about.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And guess what? We've got a surprise today. We are rejoined by our esteemed colleague and good friend, Mohamed Shukri, who has been sharing with the world his book titled You Are the One and Only. Correct?
Yep.
And he's just returned from a very successful book launch around the Middle East, where he had thousands of people screaming for his autograph. They just wanted to touch his clothes as he was walking past, just to be in the presence of Mohamed Shukri. Well, maybe not thousands, but hundreds were wanting to do that.
Okay,
Good
that
to
will be closer to the truth. Okay.
good. Good. I'm always close to the truth. Good to have you back with us, Mohammed. And of
Thank
course,
you very much.
Fiby Francis. How are you both gentlemen today?
Very well, Graham. Great to be with all of you, and Ramadan Kareem to all of our viewers and
Well done,
listeners.
Kerry. Thank you
Of,
so much.
of course, Ramadan Kareem. And we know that at this time, Ramadan is a period of reflection, isn't it?
It is.
It's a period of reflecting, learning, giving. Have I got three of them?
Yes, meditating also and being grateful.
Yeah. Well, I learn from you, gentlemen, every time we are together. And I'm glad you mentioned the gratitude side of things. I'm also grateful for the great relationship that we have and that we are together trying to and endeavoring to change the world one leader at a time. And I know we're having an effect and we'll continue to do that. I reflect on that all the time, even when it's not Ramadan. So this can happen.
Absolutely.
I have a question. We talk about leadership, and that's our passion and it's our purpose. Where does leadership begin? In an individual, where does it begin? Where does it start? Does someone wake up early in the morning and say, oh my gosh, I think I want to be a leader? Some people do, maybe. Where do you think it starts? Mohammed?
Well, if it comes to our lives, we were led before we led, if you know what I mean. So we were led by others, then we led at one point of our time. So we experienced being led by others way more than us leading others.
Yeah.
And it has affected us, who led us and how they led us. Definitely our parents were the first people to, welcome us to the world and, lead a happy life and a healthy life for us. But also in the same stage, other than parents, we were led by other people. Uh, Possibly we lived with them longer during the day than our parents, or equally, and they are called teachers. So we were led by them also.
Interesting. Teachers. We'll come back to that. Fiby, where does leadership begin?
Yeah, when Mohammed mentioned about that teachers, I went back to my initial school days, long time back. I was
I'm not going back to yours.
long time back, and yeah, in the KG classes, that teacher who was who was taking care of us, creating that confidence in us to come to school. It is a good and safe space for you to learn. And that actually came to my mind immediately. Yes. So I think it is the spaces where we learn. Yes, of course, home plays a role seeing our parents, but when we see it from a structured perspective, we start seeing that in our schools, the teachers who shaped us, our initial thought process, and how that even impact now, sometimes the words. sometimes their kind actions giving us the confidence to lead our life. So, yeah, I think as Graham and Mohammed mentioned, the role of teachers in our life is crucial in our early stages of understanding leadership.
Yeah, well, Mohammed touched on an interesting point first, and I'll expand on that a little bit. He talked about our parents and said that they are initial influences on our behaviours. Of course they are. We learn values from our parents because of their behaviours and what they're doing. Just over the last few days, I have been experiencing something that's very personal to me and some actions by someone in this situation who was very close to me, very personal to me as well. And I said to this person that the behavior that she was demonstrating, which is wonderful, is, of course, as Fiby will say, modeling the way. But her children, who are young, the eldest is 6 and they are then 2 years apart, below, they are learning from her, and they will carry those behaviors as they grow older, of course. So she's developing her children without even knowing it in that context. And I don't know that parents recognize the power that they have to develop the behavior of their children. I've long said, in terms of things like particularly emotional intelligence, that if parents behave emotionally intelligently towards their children and they teach their children about emotional intelligence, they give their children a gift for life because of what the children learn and become, in that sense, emotionally intelligent. So back to leadership. Children are influenced by their parents. Now, when we asked, and when I say we, I mean people a whole lot bigger and better and more exciting than I am, Jim Kouzes and the research that they did. When we asked people, who influenced you most when you were young to become a leader? Who influenced you? Where did this come from? Where did this come from? What's the answer, Mohammed? You said it before. It's the teacher. Usually, number one, the influence that people indicate is that teacher. And quite often they will identify a particular teacher. When I was in grade 3, teacher so-and-so, he was or she was fantastic. They will identify the name and the year that they had that teacher. So whilst we should almost should be, we've got a Mother's Day and a Father's Day in most countries around the world every year. There really should be a Teacher's Day, shouldn't there? Because of the gift that teachers give to children that well and truly goes beyond the classroom. Would you agree, gentlemen?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, when you use the word influenced, we know leadership is about influence, and we experience that influence in its purest ways. And there was no strings attached, like, I mean, financial rewards. There was no employment, no business, no hierarchies. It was a teacher, a person, a human being, and another human being who needs not only the knowledge, but needs you as a teacher to guide and take them to where they need to go. And that required a lot of qualities, not only open the book or do the homework. And you, as a teacher, demonstrated those qualities. Of course, I'll call you one of the best leaders in my life. And of course, you will have not only one day, days to celebrate you.
So I'll put this now out and see and get Phoebe's comments on this. What is it about teachers that has that impact and link to leadership? What are teachers doing? Making sure I do my homework, and I'm in trouble if I talk when I shouldn't. We could say all those sorts of things. And when I cross any lines, although children don't usually say that, but if I speak in class, I'll get sent to the headmaster's office. So there is that disciplinary kind of sense. I've got to do my homework or I'm in trouble. What do teachers do? No, but let's just qualify this. Not every teacher does it. Let's just be upfront, right? That not every teacher, but the teaching profession overall, shall we say, has the ability with the people that are teachers to impact future generations. Is that overstating it? I don't think it is, right? Because of what teachers do. So what are teachers doing in the leadership context? Fiby.
Yeah, I think, Graham, so one aspect which you already pointed out is the modeling the way, someone who is modeling the way in the process and showing and touching on the values part, which you highlighted. We have to understand that values are being seen and experienced by people in the room. And that is one aspect of that which impact as a student, how my teacher is modeling the way. And that effect is going to be transformational. Second is, how am I encouraging the heart? Another leadership practice. Again, each, if we look back, who are the teachers whom we still remember or whom we still appreciate? There will be few of those teachers who have always encouraged your heart. Graham, you are one of them. And from our schools, from our college or university, or sometimes it can be our own fellow colleagues who may be not in the teacher designation, but we may be encouraged by that person. Of course, parents may be doing that. Now, these touching aspect, and that is where encouraging the heart is also the relationship building process which happens. And this relationship building is key in our early days to take that initiative. When you draw a picture, imagine the teacher is saying, wow, this is beautiful, keep up the good work. And you will be interested to draw another picture. Imagine that you are creating a sculpture, and if the teacher is saying that, wow, you have a good skill, keep up the good work. Imagine that you are writing your assignments on time, and wow, you are keeping the time all the time. Imagine the positive impact that can have. So to the question, Graham, yes, we see the leaders in our teachers most of the time.
But there's one important element that needs to be in place, and that is that when the teacher says the sort of things that you've just mentioned, the way they say it must be genuine and meaningful, right? It's not just trotted out as, oh, that's beautiful. No, it's got to be genuine, and it touches the heart of the child. And the child goes, wow. When the teacher encourages the child to lift a little bit higher, you can do this, without saying you must do this, but you can do this. I know you are able to do this. And, when I hope people now, as we're talking and they're listening to us, they're thinking of teachers that they had when they were at school, whatever level of school, and they're thinking of the positive experiences that they had. Unfortunately, one of the negative experiences that I had was my history teacher when I was probably about 14, so that's about year 7, I think, in high school. The history teacher was an older gentleman, and these were the days when we had things called blackboards in the classroom, and large blackboards, big, a lot of them. He would walk into the room at the start of the history period, which is 40 minutes, and he had a book in his hand, and he'd open up his book and he'd write from the book onto the blackboard. He would copy what's in the book and write it on the blackboard, and he'd write for 40 minutes, and we had to write everything that he wrote. And then the bell rang at 40 minutes, and that was the end of the lesson. He closed his book and went out. That was a history lesson. I have not learned anything about history in his class. However, teachers who operate in a little bit more experiential context and say, even saying to the children, how would you like to learn about history? How can I, there's so many ways now that we can do things, as there were wonderful teachers back when I was at school. Don't get me wrong, there were, and they have an ongoing impact beyond the time when we graduate from school.
I mean, when you mentioned about my book, coming back from the tour, I invited one of my teachers back in grade 11. or 12. I forgot which grade. But that was the period before I leave to college. And then this guy, this teacher, made all efforts possible to make me love language and specifically writing. I wasn't good at writing during his year. Actually, I was good in writing before, but nobody noticed. No, and if they noticed, they didn't care much. Just reach that level until I met this teacher, and he praised my writing. And one day, I still remember in the corridor, I he gave me my my book back, and he has signed his name and also wrote a remark. That remark I still remember, and the remark was, your fingers carry the seeds of a successful journalist. He
Wow.
just said that. And never in
Wow.
my wildest dream I thought that I'm not a journalist, but I'm an author now. So I wanted to invite him. He couldn't make it to the launching, and he has no idea he did that, by the way.
What was the point that I'm coming to when you were telling that story? Teachers don't keep a logbook or a record of the wonderful results that they get with their students, do they? No.
No,
So
no.
when you then go back and say, Mr. Teacher, you are responsible for what I'm doing now. You inspired me. Teachers are doing this all the time, aren't they? They're inspiring students to do better and get great results. They're doing that. And sometimes they don't even realize the impact that they have in the longer term on students and how those students become, not necessarily teachers, but become leaders.
They don't actually look at our children. They come back from school, daddy, look what the teacher wrote to me. All right. I'm assuming, almost certain, that the teacher has no idea how blissful and joyful my daughter is reading this. I wish they know the impact they are leaving as leaders and teachers.
I was getting lots of comments like, should try harder. Graham can do better. That encourages. Yeah. So let's just revisit for a moment. When we say, well, what do teachers do that get these results? Because what we are now doing is celebrating teachers in this conversation, correct?
Yes.
So what do teachers do? Do they build a relationship? The successful
Yes.
teachers, yeah,
Yes.
build a relationship. True. Do they learn themselves? Oh, I'm sure they do. Let's move to the 5 practices. Do they model the way?
Yeah, Graham, I think there is a story which I just want to highlight. Maybe some of you might have heard that. You know, for me, grade 12 was a disaster from a marks perspective, you know. And in the it become difficult for you to apply if you are less than 50% in your grade 12 marks in many competitive exams in India. So for me, that was a point of in a demotivated state. You cannot get a opportunity to go to higher studies immediately. So in my case, after first chance, second chance, third chance, there opened an opportunity to be part of a bachelor's program in arts in economics. And there I met my professor, the department head, and I recall what he said even now, you know, your life is not determined on what you received as your marks. And that was actually, you know, I connected with enabling others to act, bringing in new perspectives to your thought process. And he said one aspect, you know, the world run on economics. The economics of, and if you start understanding the way in which money, the opportunity of being an economist is huge. And that was a huge shift for my thought process. And now when I reflect back, his words, actually helped me to challenge my process to reinvent myself. And
Teachers.
that was the power of the words, the especially teachers. And it can be applied in the workplace too. The power of words in the workplace, how it can transform people.
Yeah. Yes. And we know that teachers make a difference, but they don't know always that they are doing it. But the words that they use have an impact. And it doesn't matter what level it is, but when we say to, as I think I might have said at the start of this conversation, when we ask people, where did the influence come from for you to become a leader? And they usually identify, number one, teacher. The other one might be a close relative. It could be my father, or it could be an uncle, or it could be a coach that they had in a sporting area that they were in. These are people that influence them.
Yeah.
Leaders, because of what that person was doing to them, modeling the way, for one thing, talking about a vision for the future, talking about where they're going and what they can achieve, getting them to challenge the process, find another way. You can do this, you can get through. This, of course, is now linking it into enable others to act.
Can I stop at enable for a moment? I want to share something I read only today. One of the biggest Saudi leaders in the diplomatic area, he's no longer. His name is Ghazi al-Qusaybi, and he's very well known. He was a Saudi ambassador also. And Ghazi al-Qusaybi says during school time, his teacher said, "Can you can you do a research on this personality, historical personality?" He said, "That was a homework given to me. I did the research and I submitted the research. My teacher immediately included my research into the curriculum of that semester. I was shocked. No
Wow.
questions asked. My work became part of my teacher's work that the students have to study and be graded for." And this was one of several things that the teacher used to do, which enabled the students to actually take a part of what the teacher does. Imagine the power you're bringing in that student. So when you said enable others to act, I really wanted to say that badly.
Of course, what that does is to say the teacher is accepting, as he should, or she should, I don't know everything. I
Yes,
need
yes.
more. What can you bring to this? Oh, me, I'm only a student. No, what can you bring? Oh, and this teacher inspired me to find bigger and better things. So they enabled me. Wow, that's a great story, Mohamed, really is. And of course, the fifth practice, which I think is Phoebe's favorite, when teachers recognize what we've done, and it's not just a good job, it's not just that, but they are genuinely recognizing when someone does good things, and they can do it in front of the class, they can make an example of them, they can be given a certificate, whatever, but when the teacher recognizes the good work that students do, that really makes a difference. Yes?
Yes, and if this was the last thing I would say today, and building on something you just said a minutes ago, actually at the beginning, where does leadership start? It started very early in our lives. In fact, from this platform, I can confidently say if all teachers actually adopt their job as influencers and leaders,
Oh,
and if they are lacking any resource, they can just use the five principle practices. I doubt we would need a lot of leadership education later on when we have leaders we are, trapped with, or leaders doing a really bad job, sometimes on a very large scale. I wonder if this leadership actually was adopted way in the characters of the teachers, not only their behavior, but characters, behavior, and teaching. I wonder, would we have needed this much training and teaching of leaders to fix people when it's almost too late. I also understand why the leadership challenge has given weight to the students' leadership through their program, the Leadership Challenge for Students, which
Yeah, the student
rarely I
leader.
see actually in any other leadership program, which they only celebrate getting the leaders, the CEOs, the C-suite level. Let's teach you leadership. But Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner, their vision actually was really powerful. They said, let's start with the schools also.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you mentioned that. You're right. There is no other leadership program that links the age group that we normally put leaders into, that's our age group, but the leadership challenge not only does that, but the student leadership challenge. Let's start developing students. And I know an organization in Saudi who only focus on developing students. That's where leadership development should start. And with the work that teachers are doing around the world, that's where the interest and influence comes from to develop leaders and the students that they are helping to develop and grow. I really think that people listening to us or watching us now will resonate with what we're saying and will personally connect to a teacher who influenced their lives, a teacher that they had who did things that inspired them to study harder or to be able to achieve what they didn't think was possible. Final word from Fiby.
It is it is the power of words. Again, I want to reiterate. And for me, one word which one of my teachers told me was, Phoebe, you are enterprising. And that keep me motivated all the time. Whenever I am in a difficult situation, this somehow comes to my mind. And, again, these are touching all the 5 practices, that simple word, actually. He has helped me to model the way. That is one. To be enterprising, that word comes in. And second practice, inspire shared vision. He at that moment gave me, Phoebe, you're enterprising. That is your vision. Do that. And third one is, again, challenging the process. To be enterprising, you have to reinvent yourself. So that again impact me through that leadership practice. And the fourth one, and enable others to act. When you are enterprising, you are also enabling others in your journey, supporting them. And of course, as I informed, the fifth practice, it encourages the heart all the time. So whenever I find in a challenging environment, these words resonate with me, and I'm grateful for that words which my teacher told me. So, dear all, we are all teachers at various points of our time. It may be to our kids, it may be to our colleagues, it may be to our neighbors. So be the leader, and the leadership challenge 5 practices will definitely help you to be an exemplary leader.
And my final word on this is that I hope people who are listening to us reflect on that teacher or teachers that impacted positively on them to become leaders, to reconnect with the instance when the teacher said, as the example Mohamed gave us of the teacher who said that you have the seeds of a journalist. And I'm sure there'll be people listening to this who go, wow, I remember when this teacher said this to me and the impact that it. Teachers are creating leaders. Teachers are leaders. Gentlemen.
Not only that, I'm going to jump. Not only that, this is the month of Ramadan. We started now, and we have to be grateful. And we actually, me and Phoebe, are also very grateful to a teacher who brought us all the way here. He came all the way from Australia, and he built a seed of leadership challenge, not only to both of us, but so many people in the Middle East. Thank him. He taught us, if you cannot distinguish who's the teacher in the room, there's a problem there. Because Graham Moore, he has taught us authentic leadership, and he's putting us with him on the same level. All the 5 practices are in you. I don't know if me and Phoebe have another episode to say this, but probably this is the best one to say this. Thank you for a great teacher, Graham.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate all the efforts which Graham is providing us. Grateful for that, his mentorship, his guidance. And as Mohammed mentioned, that this is bringing us all together and making us all better leaders.
Wow.
Thank you, Graham.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And I want you guys and others listening to us to be aware of the ripples that you create. I sometimes talk about the footprints you leave in the sand, and that is the change that every individual can make and how they can impact positively on this world that we live in. Wow, thank you. That was unexpected. Thank you so much, both of you. I'm most grateful.
Awesome.
And let's leave it on that positive note. And we will be back together again next week at the same time. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thank you.